Seven Blue Skies presents Paranormal, Book 5, Part 2, Legend of the Living Dead, by Dr. Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq. 4. Fright Night. While ripping up the piece of paper in his hands, Harry said, "I congratulate you for the scare you caused me last night. I went out of my room to smoke a cigarette, and I found this paper begging me to save you." And he threw the pieces of paper out the window, saying, "But for God's sake, why did you ask me to save you before anything even happened?" "Well," I answered, "I said to myself that if I'm not back by the time you wake up in the morning, I'll definitely be in trouble. And then the words 'save me' would be very handy. But if I come back, then the note wouldn't be of any importance, because I would wake you up myself in the morning. My problem is that all of my friends are geniuses." I scratched my head humbly and said, "What should we do now? Do we listen and take the advice?" "You mean the old woman's prophecy?" Harry wondered. "Yes, and the barman, and Gabriel. Everyone agrees that a disaster will happen to us." "Anyway," he said, "the witch's prophecy speaks of 2 and maybe 3, as you said, which means we have a safety net of 2 days, or maybe 2 weeks, and maybe 2 months, and maybe 2 years." Contemplating while pacing my room with his hands in his pockets, Harry said, "Anyway, I think, and you would agree, that if we take that threat seriously, we will never again respect ourselves." Courteously, I said, "But why not just leave the island? I don't like it much anyways." "Because that's cowardice," said Harry, as if spitting the words. So I didn't want to upset him any more. And at that moment Linda and Jimmy arrived from their tour of the city, which they had decided upon this morning in spite of my objections. Linda was agitated and angry, and Jimmy was upset for unknown reasons. There was something about Linda's face. I don't know what it was, but something was different. Now I get it. A big chunk of her blonde hair on the right side of her head had been cut off, which gave her a disheveled and kind of comical appearance. "It seems like the coiffeur is no good, Linda," I said jokingly while pointing at her head. But she didn't laugh. She said a woman with a red bandana snuck up behind her in the crowded market, quickly took out a pair of scissors, grabbed a bunch of her lovely strands of hair, and escaped before Linda knew what was happening. She only understood from the looks of pity on the faces of those passers-by who happened to witness it, as if they had seen this scene a lot, and as if saying, "Here's another one." Trying to lighten the mood, Harry said, "She wanted a golden souvenir, dear, and she got one." Between her teeth, Linda exclaimed, "If that wolf fell into my hands, I would eat her heart. You're a man, and you don't understand how much we women value our hair." As for me, this all seemed somewhat familiar. Why did that woman want a strand of Linda's hair? A woman wearing a red bandana, which, with some imagination, means a gypsy woman. And the topic of taking a strand of hair reminded me of the type of witchcraft old women practice in the Egyptian countryside. A strand of a man's or woman's hair put onto a cloth doll, which is then pierced or otherwise damaged in various ways, and supposedly the damage transfers automatically to the owner of this hair. This seemed familiar, but I wouldn't dare confront one of them with something they dislike, due to my personal fear. It would only stir them up or cause them to laugh at me. So I'll keep this terrible idea imprisoned in my head and take care. Sunset. I was sitting in one of the cafes, sipping on a cup of mint tea, when Harry entered and sat at my table. "Let's go," he said enthusiastically. Calmly, while adding sugar to my tea, I said, "That's not such a bad suggestion, but I think I have the right to know. Where to?" Impatiently, not knowing whether to laugh or scream, he exclaimed, "Won't you stop with these smart aleck remarks? Get enthused for something just once, and then you'll understand life." "You forgot," I said. "My teachers were Brits, and they're all so cold, and they see you Americans as a bunch of rich maniacs." "B.S.," Harry replied, and then he took a sip of my tea and whispered, "It's the night of the living dead." "Awesome," I said dryly. "I swear to you," he went on, "tonight is a special night for the voodoo witches. Tonight they will practice the voodoo ritual of making a zombie. Can you imagine, kid?" "And who told you that?" I asked, unmoved. "Angela, the old florist whose shop is next to the hotel. She told me they practice their rituals behind the river, near a village called and he scratched his head, confused. These damn names all sound alike. But what does that have to do with us? Hitting the table with his fist, he asked loudly, Don't you get it? We have to go. Have you gone mad? It's the chance of a lifetime. I have the camera and the recorder in my bag. We'll go there and record the rituals for the world to see. And I'll send the pictures of zombie making to Life magazine. We'll be famous. And you think someone has never captured this scene before? I asked him. Of course, kid. And he took another sip from my cup, continuing, For any stranger who sees these rituals is destined to die. And that interests you? I asked. Of course. It's the virgin land no man has seen before. It's the mountains on the moon. It's the deep ocean caves. It's the hidden pyramid room. It's the top of Everest. And the real victory is to visit all these places where no one had ever been before. I quickly motioned for the waiter to bring the bill and then said, Listen, Harry, you don't know much about me, but I'm a living catastrophe. I'm a curse on 2 feet. And every place I go to, I find some disaster, or a demon whom only I can see. And even when I stay at home, I was haunted by a cannibal. So you see, I have some experience in these matters, and therefore I totally refuse your suggestion. Then I'll go alone, Harry mumbled. I've rented a small Ford for this. And I'll go back to Florida with a broken widow and orphan child? Of course, said Harry. Only cowards live longer than others. And that's my problem. I can never, even for a change, say the word no with a loud voice. So, as you expect, I found myself in the car next to Harry, going to enjoy the Living Dead rituals. We observe now the voodoo rituals practiced by the witches of the Antilles Islands. And if you want to imagine the scene, you have to imagine a house of 1,000 dancing devils and 1,000 drums in the light of 1,000 candles. Come with me and don't be scared. Take my hand and come, let's break through this crowd. A crowd of dozens of young men and women chanting hand in hand. And notice the pungent smell in this place. And watch out! Don't bump into that frenzied dancer in the devil costume replete with a tail and 2 horns. And watch out for this dancer twirling in the dust, her black suit depicting a graphic white skeleton. And now come with me to this spot lit by 1,000 candles. I don't know how or when they were lit. And don't be scared by these skull lamps with flames seen through the eye sockets. They won't hurt anyone anymore. Do you hear the group chanting? And do you hear the drums with me? It's an amazing chant, but unfortunately in a language we don't understand. As for this woman dancing to the drum beat, it's their witch. And as you can see, she's a beautiful young woman, but frightful and harsh with her square jaw. Come now to the live oak tree, whereby stands a dark-skinned guy, bare-chested, tied with ropes, his eyes shining with ecstasy, as if he's under the influence of some drug. The flames reflect on his green face paint, and a short one-eyed man gives him liquid, some red punch in a bowl. No, it's not a bowl. It's the top of a human skull. But don't be scared. See, he repeats after them some rhyming words whose meaning I don't get. And everyone chants this word insistently. Baal is Bul, Baal is Bul. Are you scared? I can't blame you. I'm just like you. Are you disgusted? Of course. This tainted atmosphere is unsuitable for sensitive people like you and me. Then come with me to our hideout, mine and Harry's, away from this crazed crowd. Here, below a leafy oak in a place their torches and candles don't reach. Don't make noise because the recorder is on, picking up all their cursed chants. And here's Harry aiming the camera using a zoom lens and speed B, so that the flash won't give away our position. Look, the witch is taking a snake out of a bag and wrapping it around the bound guy's neck, repeating some words. And the scariest thing of all is that this kid couldn't care less. His eyes on the camera, Harry says in undertones, Don't you get it? This kid is the next zombie, and this party will end with their killing him. Oh my God, I said, and we're just going to watch this? Either the party ends by their killing him, says Harry, or ends by killing us all, so which do you prefer? I swallow hard, feeling helpless, and I curse everything in this country, including us. And I go on, worried, while watching these bloody events. "Korika," comes a sharp voice. "Korika, Korika." The witch holds a homemade black cloth doll, and here she pierces the doll's stomach and then throws it into the flames. Are my eyes tricking me, or is that doll really moving within the fire, like a human burning? The chanting and screaming grow louder, and the drum beats accelerate. "Korika, Korika, Korika." And the witch now has another doll, on which she performs the same sick ritual. And now a third, that of a white woman. Tacked onto the doll's head are strands of blonde human hair, but just a second here, strands of blonde human hair. Now I realize who this doll resembles. And now I know when and where the theft of this hair happened. The owner of this hair, who doesn't realize what's happening to her hair right now. She who has been cursed by the zombie curse. It's Linda. Like someone stung, I stand up and tell Harry quickly, "Listen, we have to get that doll from them." "What? Why? No time to explain. Just get ready to make a run for it. Wait for me in the car and keep the engine running." "Are you crazy?" he hisses. "Hurry," I level with him. "Take the recorder with you." And without another word, I get out my gun, emerge from my hiding place behind the huge tree, and rush towards them, towards the voodoo witches. 5. Will we make it back? What madness! If one of you knows something which might help me forget these bitter memories, please tell me. Every night I can't sleep. My mind replays the bloody events of that cruel night, the night of the living dead. And the pen falls from my hand. And now, here's a scene for you. I scream like someone in hell, and in a few long steps jump to where the witch stands. And before anyone senses my presence, I direct a punch into the cruel, square chin, and I rip the doll out of her hand. And now I fire one shot into the air. The witches and their apprentices retreat in surprise. In my clumsy movement, I knock over dozens of candles, and my glasses fall from me. But I manage to escape, and I remember to fire a last warning shot before making a mad dash for the car parked ready in the shade of the trees. The engine roars, calling me. After 2 more steps, I pile into the passenger seat next to Harry, who quickly reaches the asphalt leading back to the city. After a long silence, he said, "And now will you explain to me what just happened?" I said nothing. Instead, I handed him the cloth doll. He glanced at it, and then his eyes returned to the dark road as he said, "And what about it? Just a lame homemade doll you can use to scare children. And I don't think Jimmy will like it." "Don't you get it, you idiot?" I scolded him. "This doll is a fetiche of Linda." Truly ignorant of such things, he asked, "Fetiche? What's that?" Sighing impatiently, I answered, "A fetiche is a small doll/model resembling a living person, and attached to it or in it is something of the victim's, like hair or fingernails. And the ancients once thought anything which happens to this voodoo doll also happens to the person the doll represents, on a scale matching the difference in size." "So tonight we witnessed someone being burned?" "Maybe," I said, "and maybe the whole thing is just a prank." Harry took the steering wheel with his left and handed me the doll. So they wanted to take vengeance on me and Linda. "Clearly," I said, "but I managed to prevent them temporarily." "But," he said hopefully, "don't you think you're exaggerating? All this noise and even gunfire over a myth? I mean, you're a doctor and I'm a computer engineer, kid." I lit up my first cigarette in 3 hours and coughed out, "I don't know if it's a myth or not, but I won't leave it to chance. Look, all the divine books assure the existence of black magic. That's why I wouldn't enjoy, and nor would you, getting back to the hotel to find Linda burnt." "I still don't believe it," he said. "Listen," I explained, "there's no doubt about the existence of magic. The real question is whether those people were witches or con artists. And we won't know that unless they succeed in hurting us." Looking at the road distractedly, Harry remarked, "Anyway, we scared them bad, kid. And we won't survive that." That's true, I admitted. I think all the voodoo witches and zombies on this island are looking for us right now. We deserve death after what we did. What we have to do now is go back to the hotel, and you take your wife and child and catch the first plane back to the States. Staying here one more night is too dangerous. Maybe you're right, kid. I rubbed my eyes tiredly and said, Didn't you notice something weird? I mean, I'm used to you being observant. He looked at me carefully for a moment and then shouted, stunned, Oh my God! Yes, I said, but don't freak out on me. I'm tense enough already. And I lost my glasses back there. Harry drove steadily for a minute before asking, Do you think it would work? For a fetish? I replied wearily. I don't know, really. Could they make a doll representing me and put those glasses on it? I don't know. But, Harry said, seeming to warm to the subject, if the magic works, that means you're a lost case. They can hurt you at any time, and there's no escape. I'm well familiar with all the charming sides of this subject, I told him, so you needn't explain. A beautiful, promise-filled tomorrow awaits me, so don't speak to me about it. And here I heard Harry groan loudly. What's wrong, Harry? Stomach ache. Today's events do not agree with my ulcer. Damn you, I exhaled, and here I thought their curse had caught up with you. Anyway, they didn't waste any time, he said quickly, and pointed to the road ahead, the asphalt lit by our headlights. And I noticed a large group of people standing across the road, like a human barricade. The asphalt was on fire, the flames reflecting on Harry's face as he sat tensely, his hands gripping the steering wheel. They held something in their hands. Perhaps they were the weird puppeteers for a full skeleton, its bones rigged together, which seemed to stand erect in the road, blocking our way. Anger flamed in their eyes. Frantically, I shouted, Go, Harry! Let's get out of here! They're waiting for us! Grinding his teeth, Harry said, I can't just drive over them. Those freaks won't retreat even if I drive towards them to scare them off. Then he roared, But there's a solution, kid! And in a flash he pressed the brakes hard. The tires shrieked in protest, and our heads nearly hit the dashboard. And with uncanny skill he turned the steering wheel hard over and pulled the handbrake, as if wanting to break it off. The car drifted off the road, our headlights darting between the trees racing towards us. But Harry dodged them one after another. And after a minute, we regained the road. Ford is really an awesome car, said Harry. Ah, you cocky Americans, I remarked. If this was a German car, you'd be claiming you're the best driver ever. Maybe, he said. But anyway, regardless of the car's nationality and its drivers, we survived, and that's what matters. And you know how to get back to the main road? I asked. Shouldn't be a problem, said Harry. We're not far from Kingston now. I was hoping so, and I hope that you realize my gun is out of bullets now. End of part 2.